Okay, we're going to start this meeting. Call to order. This meeting is our normal February 22nd meeting for the commissioners of the Princeton Public Utilities. Our next March meeting, our regular meeting for March, will also be on the 22nd of this month. So today replaces our February 22nd meeting. Roll call. You good on that?
Yes, if you just want to mention.
Yep. So present we have Commissioner Edmonds, myself, Commissioner Schwartz, and via Zoom we have Commissioner Erickson, and he's residing at 65 Sable Drive, Punta Gorda, Florida. So Dan, you can hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
So any questions, we'll just need to make sure that we're loud and clear and not double talking, because this is being recorded and it's going to allow the ratepayers and the community to hear us if we just maybe take this a little bit slower. And then
is there a slight delay from our communication with them?
I don't know if that's the case. It's just Jack, what we're going to be doing, if there's a motion, we need independent. So if there's an aye or a nay, we need to hear that from Dan and then to hear it from you instead of a joint direction.
We have to do a formal roll call vote since one of the board members is remote.
Okay, so with that said, I need the approval of the agenda. There's the first motion.
I'll second.
Dan Erickson seconds. We have first and second. Commissioner Erickson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Edmonds, how do you vote?
Aye.
First, second. Aye. From Schwartz. We have an approved agenda. Keith, is there any public comment?
I have not received any.
All right, not hearing any, we'll move forward. Number 4, the consent agenda. If there's no questions on that, I do have one correction under F, and that would be number 1 under F for resolution 2304 should read 2303. And on F number 2, resolution 2305 should read 2304. That would match up with our packet. If there are not any other concerns or questions on the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to accept.
I will move to approve the consent agenda with the changes.
We have a first.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor, one at a time, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passed. Move on to updates. Electric Department, Mr. Linden.
Yeah, since our last meeting, commissioners, the auditors were up here. We all met with the auditors for our inventory purposes. That went well. As far as the electric department, we did not find any discrepancies. I have not heard of anything that was off. Everything went well there. We have had a meeting with DGR, discuss some future plans going forward with our capital improvement plan. Phase 1 went through some staking sheets, got some stuff squared away with that. That seems to be moving forward in positive steps. Worked through some of the construction plans of finding materials, bid lists, some technical specs on that. We've had a few outages, nothing major. Had a few over here in Meadowview that blew on a transformer. A few with some of the snowfalls, nothing major. Been working through some development costs, prices. Still struggling with some lead times on some of the equipment. They still continue to be out there a long ways. The 3-phase transformers still continue to be a struggle. They're out there a long time now. They're even our supplier that was been better with our capital improvements plan. They're stretching out even further now. One price we got back now for a project that's coming up. The mids of the, not the largest ones, but the mid-range, like a 1500 kVA, they're all 2 years on now instead of a year. So that's a little bit bigger. That's on the upper end of our range, but so it's getting out there now. It's getting to be a little bit concerning. So also Tim attended, Tim Berg, one of our linemen, attended an NESC workshop down in Plymouth. Just dealt with some code updates and that kind of stuff. And then we've just been doing some MMUA training, stuff like that. And it's just regular day-to-day stuff like that. So
I want to ask this question, Mr. Butcher, Mr. Linden, with that news, what does that do to our plans, or are we adjusting anything with this new data?
Well, fortunately for phase one, everything got bid in. We are looking at phase one of doing well, bulk of it this year, but we'll probably go in the spring a little bit for some things. The stuff that Jeremy's talking about is probably going to affect more of phase two. However, we've been in conversations with DGR about starting that construction or that planning process sooner than we had originally anticipated, given that the lead time is going to be possible. So as soon as we get the ball rolling on the construction for phase one, we're going to go straight into phase two planning, which normally we would wait a little bit longer. You wouldn't have to do it so early. So we are doing that. The bigger, but the cap plan is a 10-year plan. That's something that we can plan. The bigger concern is any new developments.
Right.
And there's not a whole lot we can do in that area unless we want to increase our inventory, but then we're tying up a lot of capital for something that may or may not get used. And you're buying stuff at the premium that it is right now. So if it doesn't get used, it's a question.
Today's price might be a good deal, and premium might be later too. We don't know.
True. But there is a lot of conversation going on in Congress right now. APPA is pushing hard on this. It's not just us; it's everybody. There's proposals in place in front of the Congress to see what we can do to speed up the manufacturing of transformers. There's even talk of suspending some of the efficiency upgrade requirements, just so that they can get them built faster with less steel, to hopefully address some of that issue. But just like last year, if we were one or two major hurricanes going from some places in the south, maybe not being able to rebuild right now if they can. So it's more. I'm not too worried about us. We keep stuff here based on our historical usage. Yeah, we'll get to that. But the bigger problem is any development that hasn't placed an order yet. It's kind of too late now for this year, and it might be too late for next year, based on the lead times.
yeah, we had I went on for quotes on a transformer through our supplier, and he said they're still waiting on. They had 6 or 7 transformers in the queue from last year that they're still waiting on parts for. That they weren't able to get built last year.
Is all of this overseas, or is it USA?
Yes,
Both. Okay.
I mean it is. It all depends on where they're sourcing their materials from, and I mean they can't get the steel for the cases for the tanks. They can't get the steel for the parts because the steel that they use for the core is the same stuff that they use for the EV cars and the batteries, and it's everybody's wanting the same steel. And
yeah,
the manufacturers, they're pushing the EV cars, so they're using it for that, and they're using it for this, and it's just a shortage across the globe for everything.
Yeah,
and it's not just a COVID thing. It's not just an EV car thing. It's not just a transformer thing. It's not just this. It's not just that. It's just
kind of like a perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm. I mean,
Yeah.
COVID didn't help, but it was a bad time. It was a really bad time for that. I mean, it was getting more and more difficult before that, but that definitely drastically compounded the problem, but I mean, it was getting more and more difficult, but it was, I mean, nothing like this.
So we still have a supply chain problem, not only in this industry, but I'm sure all over.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, you know, and it's not just EV cars, I mean, it's windmills, I mean, they all take transformers, it's not just, it's industry across the whole, you know, it's everything.
So with that transformer burning out, that reduces your inventory at least by one from what you've had. Are you still comfortable with it?
No, it was just a fuse. It was,
Oh, the transformer is okay.
yeah, it was just
okay.
a bayonet fuse,
All
yeah,
right, okay.
yep.
So an example of the supply chain where I work with TriCap, we're 2 years out on getting new buses.
Yeah.
And they've doubled the price.
Well, I mean, we'll get into that here in a second, for what we've been looking for on some other piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else
Yeah, if you wanna bring it up, what you found today.
on the truck?
on the truck, finally,
Still up there?
no. No, it's a 2023, I can pass this around if you want. 2023 3/4 ton. It's a crew cab. Well, it's a double cab. It's not quite the full crew cab, but coming in well under budget. Been looking for that for 2 years. It's been on the budget. Now this 2023 was the 3rd year it would have been on the budget. So
They have this in stock.
it's on the ground, ready to go.
Is your name on it?
Yep. Professional courtesy that we're not going to get it right now. We wanted to bring it to you guys today first to give you a heads up. So we'll get it.
What do they have in the budget?
75,000 is in the budget, that, the price on that is 63.
63,284. So that's the not the out the door price, but tax, title, license, and minus stickering, you know, the decals on the side, and beacons and ancillary stuff that we have to do to make it look like the rest of our trucks.
Right.
So another couple thousand,
Yeah, a couple, 2,000-3,000.
but that'll come in under the budget.
But I mean, I've got a similar one here that's sitting in Vassal. It's a 3/4 ton Ford. That's a 2018 with 60-some thousand miles on it, and they want 58 for this.
5 years old.
For a couple, I mean, for a few extra $1,000.
Yeah. So I've called on 20 trucks in the last, sourcing equipment right now is tough. I've called on 20 trucks probably in the last year, and they're gone. They're gone before they even get there. I don't even know why they're on the websites.
Yeah.
And that's half the time I get there. They're like, we don't even know why they're on the website. So, but yeah, that one's sitting on the ground
Good.
in Burlington, over by Racine, Wisconsin, about 6 hours away. So,
Well, thank you both for your due
Yeah.
diligence with the truck and the backhoe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
really.
it's been, even with the backhoe, the stuff out of state has been significantly cheaper for whatever reason. That truck there in this state would have been probably 75.
It's like make a nice day trip, you drive over and get it.
Take a bus maybe.
We don't do that.
Jack, you know anybody that can fly them over?
Yeah, no. No, well, I'm probably do that. Think about it.
So, yeah. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Water power plant department.
Power plant. We replaced a couple of mainline valves in the jacket water system for the old units. I believe it was an 8-inch and a 6-inch down there in the basement there that were leaking by, so we got them replaced. Ziegler was in. We finally got some good starters into Unit 7 that we were confident enough to leave in there. They're working really good. We've been through a couple sets, 3 sets I think it was, that would do it, but they didn't sound good, so we finally got a good solution there and got that taken care of. Ziegler also replaced an exhaust bellow on that unit. Jim's been putting quite a bit of working on finding a supplier for the gaskets for different things on the units. They're getting to the point where you can't just call up Enterprise or they're not real, but just sourcing these gaskets. We have some spares right now, so we took a bunch of them in there. I'm working with a company was scanning them in, essentially making plans for them, and that can make them for us off the several different materials they have available, and that's what we need. So we have he's been working on that. Just a metro company there that we found that was able to copy their existing stuff and make us new gaskets. So that's going to be a nice place to have source that will willing to do that, because we're getting hard to find. We're putting some preliminary plans on the breaker testing, which will be coming up in May. Looking at June, there'll be an outage, a short outage for each area of section of town where we take the breakers out, put a spare in there that's tested, and then turn everything back on. So that'll be there'll be some brief outages, but we'll be do notifications and all that stuff through that process.
That's something we had talked about last fall. We didn't get to it because we're trying to tackle some other projects. We do want to do it before summer season is. So we're shooting for a May time frame to do that. And we'll do a special outreach to, especially the hospital and the city and some large 24/7 manufacturers, just so they know what's coming.
We try to do it in like tried to do it every 5 years, but it's been a little bit more than that since the last time we've done it. But trying to get them popped out, maintained, get the equipment right, get them tested. Been a little bit longer than that. I think 7 years, I think, since the last time we've done it. Not sure. I think it was just when Tim first started. I think it was.
We're working through the process of planning and getting everybody up to speed and a good solid plan to when that's going on, that we don't have any troubles and we know everybody's on the go with that one. Water side of things, we had monthly Department of Health testing. We had some hydrant repair. We were doing a flow test out on 21st, and we had a hydrant break off during the flow test. Stirred up the mains out that way. We did a little bit of a complaint deal out there, but we were got the hydrant back in right order and everything settled out the system up there, so got that taken care of. Meter installs have been trucking along yet. We're 91%.
90.7. Really?
No, 90.9 something. We put another one in, so I think we're like, we're thinking like we're out of the 1,844 total meters, we're down to 167 meters remaining. So 5. We're getting there. We did around the 4 acres to the people that we were still haven't been getting a response from. So we're kind of trying everything we can to get people to respond, and we can get in there and get them done. But
And some of those too are still.
yeah,
But you know about
industrial parks and stuff. There's some. Shane passed his Class D water license testing. He's got his license there, going for that now. Treatment plant maintenance, participating in some development project meetings. Sitting outside, we did get the machine falling there, so we've quite a bit of looking, but we've been running it around some here, using snow falling and stuff here. Spent some time out at the shop there. Everything's looking real good. There were no surprises that we uncovered after we got it in and really dug into it. So that should be a good fit for us. It looked a long time. We kind of looking for that needle in the haystack for the options and things we wanted with it, and we were able to find the soaps one there. So we also do have forks with that we've got in on that deal. And we did that wildlife protection with the city. Follow up our annual meeting there, so should wrap it up, I think.
Chief Frederick said in Sprinkler got readjusted or something. He was
Yeah,
told me about that water view.
yeah, it rattled. It was a very large water hammer out there when that thing. We had it, the testing company. They had it just about wide open when it come loose, and then it slams and it stops all that water. You get it under in the pipe. Essentially, a big wave coming there, and it backs up, and it Yeah, that was the police station there shook the sprinkler system. So we didn't have no other issues there. I've heard of it happening where it'll open up hot water heaters and can do severe damage to the buildings there. But
All right, thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Office Department update, Mrs. Cunningham.
So we are fully staffed in the office now. Our billing clerk started about a month and a half ago. And then 2 days ago, we had a CSR who started. Both are doing really well. Trying to firm up some of our processes and procedures within the office and kind of clean things up and modernize, and that's going really well. We got our bills out this last week. We also had our disconnection this week as well, and everybody who was disconnected is now reconnected. So those are all taken care of. And so we're just going to continue on with training our new girls and get moving on.
Great, that's wonderful.
We got one quick question here. Having a conversation with a resident I know in town here. And the comment came about the sewer bill. I said, well, the sewer isn't that a flat rate? And it's recalculated on a yearly basis. I know that based on the water usage. But during the course of the year, it doesn't pretty much stay the same.
Well,
Or is it?
the amount that,
I never had that in mind.
it actually, it can have been more than that. Yes, you're right, we reset the amounts after each.
Right, based on the winter time.
But when the city does a rate change, typically their rate change has been effective January 1st. So you will see, if the city changes its rates, you'll see those happen when the city does it. But for us, in terms of the number that is charged to folks, that does get readjusted every April, May timeframe.
To the based on winter time water usage.
Correct.
From the past year. But this particular person made it sound like every month her sewer bill was different. I shouldn't say different.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna get into it with somebody.
There's only
Outright to me.
There's only 2 customers that the city has instructed us to do a month-to-month variation, and that's for car washes. Other than that, everybody else is a flat rate based on the usage.
Well, I'll leave it at that. The person made a comment and I just don't sound right, but I left it at that. We have some people that no matter what you do, it's bad.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. City of Princeton update, Mrs. Pearson.
Relatively short. Our new accountant, Lynn, she started mid-January, it's doing very well. Just fitting in with the staff and working the backlog of things that fell off my plate. Jeremy noted that auditors were up. They came to visit us that afternoon. We now have the same auditors as the PUC. We closed on Friday with remember their company name. It's Steve and Sue Haig. They purchased the hangar lots along the hangar lots on the east side of 21st Avenue. They are going to be now going through the planning process. They'd like to break ground hopefully in June on their first building, which will house offices for their company. They've intimated that they're working with a local company to sell a lot to. Currently that company leases, and so they'd be owning their own building. We're working with Glenn Metalcraft. They've had some swap outs of their consultants. And so we reached out to them, or Stacy reached out to them yesterday, and we have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday just to make sure that we're meeting their needs in terms of supporting whatever applications they have, and to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we don't want that project to fall through the cracks.
Yep.
I'm working on, or we're working on, a final plat on the north side of West Branch Streets. It's that kind of long skinny piece that's still vacant. We have been working with the owner since shortly after I started. We're doing a land swap. We own some pieces on the east end that we're going to swap and exchange for preserving some right of way on the west end, so we can extend 13th Avenue someday and maybe have another roundabout on 95. He is intending to, so it's creating 2 lots for him to build, and he's building 2 duplexes. That's the plan anyway, is to build 2 duplexes. Kind of geared to 55 and older folks. We are proceeding, I think, well with the feasibility study on 7th Avenue CASA 4 project, which is a joint project between the PUC, the city, and Mille Lacs County. We met on Monday, more or less to talk road design, because that will be a bit of a driver in the cost, and presenting something to the county because they're basically gonna foot the bill for most of the road piece. Although we do have some ancillary things that we would like to see in the project, like for example, converting the intersection of 12th and 7th Avenue by the schools to a roundabout condition. So they'll probably, if there's a cost difference, we might see the county asking the city to pay for that. We also have a 11th Street. Evidently, part of it has curb and gutter, part of it doesn't, narrows down. So we're just going to try to clean that little section up. So there's a few little additions that we weren't anticipating, but through the study, we figure out we should, since we're going to be out there, we might as well take advantage of it and clean things up. So, as of right now, the preliminary numbers are looking good. I think Jen said that the sewer is like 600,000 and the water was like 512. And we have ARPA funds and a deed grant, so I think we can cover that part of it. And then I have to figure out how to pay for any extra stuff that we want that the county won't pay for. So, but we have to get the final numbers. We don't have final numbers yet. I'm assuming that, I mean, once we get the draft done and agreed to, we can share that with your body. So, and we are in the final stages of removing references to the crosswind runway from the airport zoning ordinance. We have a public hearing scheduled for that a week from Monday, so we'll get notices out this week. And that's really about it.
Is there any acquisition of land with that roundabout?
No, it's a mini roundabout. So well, I shouldn't say no. I will probably be looking for the school because we're gonna try to stay within the existing right of way, but we might encroach a little bit on the school side. But I think we can convince them to play nice in the sandbox in such a way.
More on the east side, not west.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to eliminate to the best of our abilities any impacts to the. I mean, there's going to be some driveway issues that we're probably going to have to work through the southwest corner property, maybe because of the extended medians that come off in the directions from the roundabout. But we're working, or Jen's firm is working really hard to reduce any neighborhood impacts. So.
We talked about doing the right-hand turn lane on northbound 7th and 12th. One time many years ago, where you came up and county with the golf course. Guy got shot down. And one of my projects got shut down. So
yeah, so let's just say that because right now there are a lot of neighbors that have been concerned with lack of recognition of pedestrians and crosswalks and, just general safety concerns. If you travel that way, you'll note that we've had the speed trailer out quite a bit, you know, with flashing signs that say caution, crosswalk, and funny, the neighbors are getting phone numbers of our county commissioner to express those concerns, and hopefully that will generate more support for the need for that roundabout. So that's all I've got.
All right, thank you very
I
much.
want to add one thing quick here at the development of the hangar area. We're at our last convo meeting, and they were very complimentary of working with the city, with Michelle, Stacy. We're very good to hear.
Great,
Good to hear
absolutely,
something like
absolutely.
Stacy does a good job. I basically kicked the whole project over to her and said, have at it.
Well, it's always good to hear positive information like that, and so spread all of that around. Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Butcher.
Yeah, on the admin side, some of the stuff that has already been mentioned, you know, the others were in the office, the inventory review went very well. I am starting to plan for a facility tour for the commission at our April meeting, just like we did last year. Last we talked about something we're doing on an annual basis, and obviously, you know, doing invite to the city council and the public in that context. So start planning that for April. We did get a notification that the Minnesota Department of Health did approve our source water protection paperwork, and their finance office is processing our grant reimbursement, which came up to $2,138.75. So that's for our well protection. So we did secure that grant, and we'll be getting that money in. Well, I guess it's the state. I shouldn't put a time on it, but it's in process. We are starting, we will be reconvening our emergency preparedness team this month to address potential supply constraints this summer. And then did want to note that it came to my attention that Connexus has increased their residential rates 2.9% in 2023. So I've done a couple of simple rate comparisons between PPU, East Central, and Connexus. Just pass a couple of these around. And I've given these to staff as well. So if we get questions about rates and how we stack up, this gives a really easy way to share what happened, what they really are. And this is for February bills. So the copies are for you as well. On the energy efficiency side, we issued rebates to the school district, Plastic Products, Something Ship, Elam, and Emmanuel Lutheran. And we have got our 2022 B-Bright results back for 2022. We rebated 2,436 LEDs, which is an increase over the prior year, saving 68,000 kilowatts. On the regulatory side, we are in the midst of reporting season. We have filed our 2022 DER reimbursement report to SIMPA, our 2022 DER report to Commerce, our OSHA 300A, our EIA 860, our 2022 DNR water conservation report, and just yesterday I finished up our 2022 MPCA air emissions inventory. I'm probably about halfway through. So
It's only February. It's only March.
yeah, so we'll keep moving forward on all of those. That's keep me busy, keeps me out of trouble. I also did want to share an air permit update with Glencoe. As the commission knows, we are starting our air permit process. It's something that every generator has to do every 5 years. Glencoe is just kind of ahead of everybody else. Latest ruling that I heard was that the PCA had made a ruling. Glencoe offered some suggested modifications to make it easier for them to implement. The MPCA rejected all of those suggestions. Some of the suggestions included replacing the 1 hour NOx monitoring with language that utility will follow all state and federal guidelines. Apparently, the MPCA didn't like that. And Glencoe suggested that they use a fuel manifest for tracking instead of individual fuel sampling of all purchases, and the PCA didn't like that. So, those are some pretty, actually some pretty big issues. So for example, what that's saying is, if we take a delivery of fuel oil and we buy it from the vendor as, you know, as a certain, you know, within certain parameters, we will have to start sampling every shipment that comes in, even though we're buying what, fuel number one, probably low sulfur content. So there's a whole bunch of things to go around it. Well, the PCA is saying the manifest is not good enough, that we will actually have to do our own. Make sure. Seems overkill, but that's what they're telling Glencoe. The reason this is important is because Glencoe's air permit is very, very similar to ours. So this does kind of establish a baseline for what the PCA is going to do going forward. We are anticipating, and when I say we, I'm kind of talking municipal generation organizations in general, that the PCA will issue that permit as drafted with none of Glencoe's requested changes, after which there will be a comment period. I think it's the utility should strongly consider filing comments to support Glencoe's position, since their plant is so close to ours. Because I think as a result, whatever is decided in this case is going to greatly impact our air process in the next 3 to 5 years. So stay tuned. I don't think this is resolved yet. It is something that we'll have to get involved. Let's see. We did wrap up our Mission Renew registrations for 2022. We finished with 16 individual participants in the program, purchasing a total of 79 racks for a cost of $237. We have submitted that information to SIPA. They will retire the racks, and then we'll notify the participants of that process has been completed. This is something that we're going to do on an annual basis. This is our first year, so we get 16 participants. I was very pleased with that. I wasn't quite sure what we were going to get, but given how late in the year we had launched it and a little bit of marketing that we could do, I thought that was a good turnout. So it shows that there's an interest out there. I have been working with Owatonna and SIPA to try to come up with a little bit nicer logo. So this is what Owatonna and SIPA and PPU came up with. So we will start including this in any of our education pieces regarding the programs. And I think the SIPA board might still need to, we'll still review that at the next SIPA meeting, but that's all the parties seem to be in agreement on that. I did have outreach from the school district. They wanted to discuss a couple of different issues. And we just talked about ways that utility can continue to support its community efforts. That meeting went well. And then Margaret mentioned that. As far as other outside organizations, Scott already mentioned this. We did hold our annual wellhead protection meeting with city staff. Had a good discussion, and we are coordinating with the city on their annexation efforts. They're picking up a couple of different plots here and there. So Jeremy and I are working with East Central Energy on some service territory questions to try to match up the utility service territory with the city limits as best we can. I continue to monitor the IIJA activities. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot going on and there's nothing going on at the same time. So it's really challenging to sift through and find the important relevant information. I've met with a couple of them. Met with a firm that is working with some municipals on acquiring some funding. I also had a meeting with a staff person over at MME Way about grant writing and assistance that he can give. When I have questions too with some of the demographic questions and things like that that come out of federal grants, Michelle's been very generous talking with me about how the city's approaching that as well. That's what I got. Let's see if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Butcher. Bonding schedule, George Cullerson. Welcome to you, sir. Join us in the middle.
Let's see, board, did you get information in your packets? Keith?
Yes, the finance plan is.
Okay, perfect. Board, there's a document that looks like this that I'll refer to a little bit. Thank you for your time on your agenda today. George Eilertson from Northland Securities. And so certainly we don't have a resolution on your agenda today to issue debt, but wanted to talk through kind of the looking forward, the calendar of from today until what we show in July as the date that we would have you consider the issuance of debt and then concurrence by the city council. So we're looking at, and this is in conjunction, we've been working with DGR. Of course, I hear that name a number of times here as you've been doing your updates. Andy Koob and Blair Metzger, we've been working pretty closely with them on putting documents together and then modeling debt for your phase one project. And board, I know that you may have it digitally here, but the last page of your document is, and this is something that you've seen, certainly it's actually a document from DGR that highlights the different phases of projects that you'd be looking at. Phase one certainly is what we're talking about issuing debt for, and that is what we're basing that financing on is a $6 million financing need. And again, financing phase one, as was mentioned earlier, as soon as you get that financing in place, or even before, you're already planning phase two. So that's something we have an eye towards phase two as we're putting together the financing plan for phase one. So just kind of a refresher board, this page here. Again, working with the folks at DGR, they had worked, of course, with you on rate setting and looking at cash modeling for your projects. One of the things that DGR recommended was kind of lighter debt service in 24 and 25, lighter bond payments in light of, and here's something that I'll kind of quote from them. Due to the power supply costs from SIMPA increasing significantly in the short term due to energy market issues in 2022, but then they expect the costs are expected to drop back following the short-term spike. So in light of that, we've got lighter debt service in year 1 and 2, and then we move it higher thereafter. So again, just kind of working closely with them on making sure we've got the structure right for you. Now, the overall financing is, again, based upon $6 million financing need. We've got a 20-year financing term that we're working with. You look at the preliminary size of the bonds, and it's about 6.6 million. And I referenced earlier, you have a $6 million financing need. So the difference between those numbers is when we do a financing for an electric revenue bond, there's built in to the project a 1-year debt service reserve. So this is, certainly on the other side of the equation, investors buy these bonds. And one of the ways that you provide security, because over at the city, they can do a general obligation bond. And that's the best security you can provide. On the electric side, you can't provide a general obligation pledge, but you do what you can to beef up the security. The most notable and most common is a 1-year reserve fund. And that's sized at approximately 1 year of debt service. So that's set aside as that rainy day fund. And so that makes up most of that difference between the 6 million and the 6.6 million. Now, and I can continue conversations certainly with Keith and Kathy about whether it be this bond or phase 2. Usually we see the reserve fund funded with bond proceeds. But if you have excess cash in you could certainly finance that yourself. What we just need to see is you set it or earmark it for a reserve fund. And one of the nice things in the current market is that investment yields are higher. And so the average interest rate on a bond issue right now has crept up in 2023. I'll say, board, right now, the average interest rate's about 4.3%. But the nice thing is on that reserve fund, if it's funded with proceeds of the bond or with PPU cash, that you can invest up to that 4.3% or whatever that final interest rate is. So the IRS doesn't want you to go over what you're borrowing money at. So just FYI on that. But that's a little bit about the structure, board. And please let me know if you ever have any questions here. One of the things that we'll certainly look at is the bond rating of the utility. Currently, you have a bond rating of A3 with Moody's Investor Service. And that's a strong rating for an electric utility. If you can get into the A category, that's considered a strong rating. In particular, out in greater Minnesota, there's a number of your colleagues that carry that A rating. Redwood Falls, St. Peter, Jackson. These are some of the cities, Litchfield, that are right in that similar rating class. Now, we have to go out and apply for that rating, and they do a review. Now, the last time they did a rating review was a number of years ago. It was, excuse me, back in like 2012. So it's been a while. Certainly, Princeton has changed a bit. You've had growth. Walmart didn't exist back then. So you've got one of your new top 5 customers right there. So what we recommend, and does a rating benefit? I should back up just a little bit. A rating in your particular bond issue, you're looking $6 million, 20 years. The rating fee itself is about $20,000. And again, these are costs that you build into the financing. Now, is it worth the $25 or the $20,000? It certainly would be if you can get into that A category, like your existing rating of A3. It helps your interest rates by between 0.1% and 0.2%. And so over a 20-year term, that's $120,000 to $130,000 of interest cost savings by getting your bonds rated. It broadens the market to who can purchase your bonds as an investment. So a lot more interest when you can get your bonds rated. So what we would recommend, and no action necessarily on this today, is that we go out and because it's been almost a decade since you had your bonds rated, is we do what's called an indicative rating. What we do is we work with the rating agency on a process of almost basically a full bond review. We've got your bond offering documents prepared at that time. They do a look at your underlying financials, the system itself, et cetera, and then give a indicative rating. That's not a one ready to be published for the investment public, but that rating is 75% of the fee. So it's $15,000 to get to that point. You can decide based upon the indicative rating, do we go further and get this rating assigned or not? For example, it's not uncommon for the rating agencies to mention concentration issues when we're talking about utilities the size of Princeton, where maybe there's one or two employers, big industrial park users, for example, that might be on their own 30% of your overall customer base. They actually, the rating agencies kind of penalize you in a sense if you have one large employer that's that high of your customer base, because what happens if they leave? Now, in Princeton's case, you have that spread out. So you have like 5 or 6 strong employers that are strong customers. And so there's less of that concentration issue. But again, we would recommend going through that indicative rating process just to make sure that, we'd be solidly in the A category. And then finally, board, regarding the bond issue, it's kind of the overall timeline. And I'll just refer to a couple highlights here. I don't need, you don't need to flip around to this page, but following today, we'll work with Keith and Keith's office on putting together what's called the bond official statement. That's the document that investors review, that Moody's reviews. It's got the, information about the city itself, the overall tax base, about the utility, who are your customers, based upon your debt, based upon your net operating revenues. What does your coverage look like? How strong are you covering your debt? Those are important things that are in that document. We'll start working on that. Around the month of May, we'd start that process with Moody's on the indicative rating process. So they'll have that offering statement in their hands. We'll probably have some back and forth with them, perhaps with Keith as well, with the rating agency. And then first part of June to mid-June, I know this is looking out just a little bit, we'd get the result of that. And looking at really having your bonds ready to be sold in the month of July. And now that's a little bit based on, DGR's recommendation for when you need money. And certainly if you have upfront costs for engineering or some project related expenses, you can pay yourself back once the bond proceeds arrive. So I think at this point, you're just into the engineering costs, correct?
Yes, planning and engineering.
Okay.
We actually bought some material as well.
Okay.
So, yes, that would be great.
So chair and members of the board will probably have at an upcoming meeting what's called a reimbursement resolution, which is, it's a resolution that says, if we use our own cash to pay for some of these expenses, now soft costs like legal, engineering, this isn't necessary. But when we get into material costs, any construction related expenses, we're supposed to have in place a resolution that says we intend to pay ourselves back later with the proceeds of a tax exempt bond. So I'll have that likely for you at your next board meeting, probably the 22nd, I believe. And then again, that just covers you for future expenses, if you will. And so certainly, as I talked about when I first started my presentation, that you, the PPU, have the authority to issue the debt, but we need the city to concur with that as well. So the timing of potentially pricing your bonds and having you, the utility, award a resolution for the bond issue, this would be at a special meeting on July 12th, which syncs up nicely with the city as a council meeting on July 13th, the next day. So that's something that we're just having as a preliminary timeline. And so board, I just wanted to cover those three things, or those three kind of main topics today, kind of covering the project itself, the rating process, and then the timing for the overall bonds. Any questions that I can address for you?
I don't have any. Commissioner Erickson, are you following this? And do you have any questions?
Yeah, can you hear me fine?
Fine.
This might be, so we're looking at that phase one of about $6 million, correct?
Correct, yes.
And the spend down on that 6 million would take how many years? According to that plan.
It's a 20-year bond.
Oh,
No, I mean, when we, for the infrastructure, would we spend it all at once? Do we need to purchase $6 million worth of goods and services?
I would say we're planning for phase one to be complete in, let's just say spring, early summer of 2024. So some of that money would be spent right away, as George mentioned, we've pre-purchased some equipment. We're hoping to get some work done this fall, but some of the final construction payments probably won't happen until summer of 24. And then all that money out.
So, when you were talking about, if we fund some of that with our reserves, then there was a payback on that. So are we funding that through a bond, like a ready reserve type account? Or I guess I wasn't following, is that, am I correct in assuming that, or did I not follow that right?
Good question. Actually, as I look at the plan that DGR put together, they had the utility doing similar to this, issuing debt for phase one and issuing debt for phase two. And then phase three, which is a lesser amount, but still 2.6 million, showing in their plan that the utility would use cash reserves to finance phase three. So that, so really following their recommendations is phase one and phase two, we issue debt, we issue bonds for, and then phase three, based upon your rate setting, based upon your project costs, et cetera, that you would have sufficient cash to finance internally, basically phase three.
Okay.
The one part, and I apologize,
Yeah.
sometimes maybe I didn't cover this well enough, but the reserve fund, the debt service reserve fund, that's the point where I was talking about maybe funding that internally or funding it with bond proceeds. Really following DGR's plan, more than likely we would have you use bond proceeds to fund your reserve, which would allow you to have enough cash freed up to pay cash for phase three.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Chair and members of the board, one nice thing I was noticing as I was just taking a look at your existing debt when I was prior to presenting here, and you have two electric bonds from 2006A, that's your MMUA loan, and then 2012, the 2012 bond retires in 24, and the 2006 bond retires in 25. When you add those two together, that's approximately the amount that you would be borrowing for phase two. So that's nice in that what's going to be falling off the books, when you'll be bringing that back on, but it won't be adding on top of that. So that's a nice scenario there.
Good timing.
Yep.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, just more of a, I guess the question, have we missed the lowest rates on the bonds? They were not lower. I don't think it's higher. Don't get me wrong, I'm not touching.
That's a really good question, and I appreciate that. The 2020 and 2021 were those really low points in the bond market. That's where we hit those historically low rates. We're off of that. The year 2022 rates basically climbed the whole year. The interest rates that we're seeing now in the current bond market, as we look back 20 years, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a bond salesman here too much, but we're right at about average for the last 20 years for the interest rates. Now, the last month, inflationary pressures, et cetera, have moved interest rates a little bit higher. Now, as we get closer to spring, my hope is that we'll see interest rates settle back again a little bit more, right closer to that timeline of when you need to borrow money. So that's something we can certainly talk about more as we get closer to your bond sale, is that if there's really a lot of fluctuation in the bond market, we've done this before where we do what's called a parameters resolution, where you say, we need to borrow this amount of money, and we'll get into the market when the timing is right. Now, I don't have the crystal ball on my side of my desk that says July 12th is the absolute low date in the market. But if we're seeing a lot of upheaval in the market, you're not we don't have to follow this schedule that's in here. We can be flexible there. So, but good question about interest rates. We'll certainly keep an eye on that and be in touch.
I think the first house I bought was 12% interest. I want 3% today, or well, 5.
Right. And to follow up on that point, certainly we would have what's called a call date on these bonds, which a 20-year bond, about year 8 or 9, we would have the ability to refinance on those bonds. So even if the interest rate's 4.3 or 4.5, if future markets rates go lower, you can refinance those bonds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So on this topic, like George mentioned, the anticipation is that we would do the pricing order at a special commission meeting on July 12th. So I guess it's up to the commission if we would like to get something on the calendar now. We can always adjust it later if need be, but if we want to just get that in our calendar, something for the commission.
No, I personally think it's a great idea to get it on the books. I checked my calendar. I'm open on that. But I think the sooner we get it on the books, there's less chance for us not making that meeting. So, I guess if I can make a motion to have that work study on July 12th of 2023, Wednesday, that is what my suggestion is and my motion.
You know, second it with a question, no, that's not that won't displace our regular meeting.
No,
This is a work study,
it would be, technically it's classified as a special meeting,
special.
because you will vote on the.
I stand corrected. Yeah. We have a first, second.
With the correction.
Okay. Mr. Erickson, all those in favor, yea or nay?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Special meeting on July 12th. Thank you, Mr. Butcher. ACH expiration discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, in your packets, the memorandum 2308. Currently we are offering a 2% credit on water bills for customers that pay through ACH. For the last commission order, that is set to expire this month, March. Or I should say, if they pay through via ACH through February, which would then be a March credit. The monthly report tracking for ACH participation and credit totals has been in the packets each month. And staff are just, well, I just wanted to bring the commission's attention that the past order is expiring to see if the commission wants to do anything to, if they want to let that expire or extend it for a period of time.
I would like to address Commissioner Erickson on this. Dan, you and I worked pretty hard on this whole project. I have an opinion that you may disagree, but I have an opinion that the reason why we instated that initiative and credits were to attract people to the ACH. If the flame has gone out a little bit with the regular ratepayers, then I would question the validity of it. As I spoke with Kathy prior to this meeting, new people that are moving into town are taking advantage of that. So I think there is some validity to the program itself, but we may want to change or curtail how we address a credit, if any. Thank you, George. Do you follow what I'm saying, Dan?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, I think if it's leveled off, I don't think we intended it as a permanent reduction or credit. So that's my opinion.
I guess I don't see a problem with, new customers coming in and if they don't know about it, at least offer it to it. Maybe there's instead of a percentage, but there's $1 off for signing up for that month only. And it just gets the wheel moving internally with the ACH. Do you comment on that at all or have any comments on that?
No, that's pretty standard for what I've seen for other utilities. is they do a sign up bonus of some sort. It's a one time thing. We can schedule something for that to make sure that, you know, when they sign up, the information they give us is accurate, so it actually goes through. And then once that happens, just put that credit on the bill. That would be very easy to do.
Okay. I think the last 3 months that, it was mostly new people, that have moved to the area. And I think that number was somewhere between 7 and 8 over the last 3. So to get them on it and to keep them aware that it is still a positive thing. And still beneficial to all of us and the ratepayers to keep the prices down. Should we discuss an amount at this meeting or do it next meeting or?
I guess my recommendation would be, you know, based on this discussion, if the commission would like to direct staff to come up with a couple of different options.
I would like that, yes.
To bring to, the next meeting is only in 3 weeks. But to bring a proposal or a series of proposals for the commission to evaluate and then decide how you would.
Okay, with that said, I would like to direct staff and Mr. Butcher to come up with some ideas, concepts. You know, if it's going to be a dollar amount, give us some options of what they think, and then we can take that into consideration to move on this action. Fair enough, commissioners?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So with that said, we'll move forward.
So if I just, so I'm clear.
Yep,
So the ACH as it stands now will be allowed to expire.
correct,
We will put a proposal together for what we're going to do going.
correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had my notes. Thank you.
But we are looking at it, we're leaning towards some kind of a one-time compensation for them to sign up.
Yes.
So it's not an ongoing.
Yes.
I would just add that I do think we should promote it and we need some kind of a fund, but I would be in favor of allowing the existing to expire.
Yeah.
Pretty much later.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. But I think it's, you know, just look at, you know, I know different things if you do a ACH or automatic withdrawal, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes you get a little better. Some kind of a hook of some kind, not everything, sometimes.
Well, and I would assume if a current ratepayer, you know, just heard about it, that they would still qualify also for that one-time sign.
Yeah.
It's not an ongoing residual.
Yeah.
All right.
Do we need action to discontinue what we have in place?
No, it's
Fine.
it had a sunset on it, so it will expire unless you take action.
Letter C, 22-year in review, Mr. Butcher.
Yes, Mr. Chair, as the commission knows, I always think it's a good idea each beginning of each year to just reflect and actually celebrate our successes. So I do create a year-end review document for the commission. We keep very busy here at the utility. The commission is very engaged and very active. And sometimes it's easy to forget all of what transpired in the previous 12 months. So in your packets is a 2022 year-end review. Covers what the commission did at each of its monthly meetings. A lot of it is focused around the electric cap plan phase 1, the ACH credit, which we've already talked about, switching the user agreement for credit card fees, approving our Minnesota Pay Equity Report, addressing some deposit questions to streamline that and make it equitable. As well as our typical housekeeping bills that you see in January. February is when we did have Dan rejoin us for another term. We did our officer. We had Kathy elected as secretary, and then also coordination between the commission and the city council by approving a letter of support for the Small Cities Development Grant, which ultimately ended up being successful. The city did acquire them. Holding a joint meeting with the city. and approving an exception agreement with East Central Energy for some streetlights on the 19th, 21st Avenue reconstruct. So again, focus on collaboration there. March, we did our officer elections with Commissioner Schwartz being chair, Commissioner Erickson being elected vice chair, reviewing our debt service reserve requirements with Northwood Securities, updating and approving our new cogen tariffs, going through our prior year review, about accepting the reliability report, drinking water report, a lot of the regulatory activities, doing a redemption of refunding for bond series. If you remember, we paid off some bonds early last year. Approving some security updates for our building and facilities. We did have Commissioner Hanson resign, which Jack came in as his replacement. And we did our tour in April. Started work on our comprehensive water plan, which is still underway. In June, we did have the audit presentation. That's when Jack joined us. A presentation of the electric cap plan, approved a task order for those improvements, and rescheduled the city joint meeting for August. In July, we had SIPA come up and do a presentation to the commission on generation and rates. The ACH credit was extended through February, and the renewable energy credit program, which came to become Mission Renew, which we talked about earlier, was approved back in July. Did a review of the general manager position. In August, the results of the rate study was presented to the joint city council commission meeting. I thought that was a very productive meeting, good collaborative conversation. Approved work for our air permit renewal, continuation with the heat share agreement, approved the updated South Water Tower lease with the school district. Princeton did announce its candidacy for the simple board of directors, and Chair Schwartz and the general and myself attended MMUA's annual summer conference in August. September, we did a work study session on the rate study. Again, approved a letter of support for the city's efforts on Seesaw 4 7th Avenue. Did some housekeeping to approve property tax assessments, and started looking at a couple of revisions on the fee schedule, and starting to look at a seasonal rate structure for 2023. Did streamline our land recycling program to limit it to just our residential customers, and then approved a 2023 MMUA safety management program in partnership with the city of Princeton. In October, we did update our agenda format, which I think has worked very well the last few months.
Yes.
It has helped streamline our meetings. Did approve phase 1 major materials, reviewed budget and fee proposal for 2023, and introduced an economic development rider. And then in November, the commission did approve that economic development rider. Also approved an energy cost adjustment, which SIPA has moved forward with. And then also approved the new 2023 rates and 2023 budget and fee in November. And then December was a lot of just kind of the end of the year cleanup with the getting the 2023 commission calendar on the books, addressing charge-offs, disposal of fixed assets. We did modify some language for the electric rate stabilization account, which will help us as we move forward with the financing. When George was talking about phase 3 using cash, that's part of the reason we set that in place, was to be able to give the commission the ability to do that. And approve the bid selection for phase 1 for major materials. So the commission was really busy and taking a lot of good action. And then I went through kind of the main topic areas. I'm not going to read every one of these. I did want to just point out a couple of key areas. Obviously, water, the AMI conversion has been a major project for us. We finished the year at 78% completion, and we're now at 91%. So even in the last couple of months, we made some good progress on that. Scott and I did give a presentation on the importance of groundwater resources to the Chamber of Commerce. Again, that's part of our wellhead protection efforts and part of our outreach efforts. Mentioned that we did get a grant from MDH for our wellhead protection plan, so that has been completed. On the electric side, it's been the cap plan, really working on that. Also did just want to note the reliability results for 2022, because that's something I think that's very important for our customers, know that they can can depend upon us. In the power plant, we did complete an infrared inspection, which was new for us for insurance purposes. And then we did complete emissions testing on all units that can get kind of complicated sometimes. We also did provide a power plant tour to the Chamber of Commerce Leadership Group as part of their History of Princeton Day. For general buildings and facilities, we did install security cameras throughout our facilities to protect our equipment and the grounds. On the administration side, we have worked to put together an orientation handbook for commissioners to reference when they come on board. Also launched Mission Renew, which I mentioned earlier, and transitioned all our collection services to OUE. Accounting and finance, a lot of this is just monthly activities, just how busy Kathy is, so you can see everything that she has to do to keep track of that. But we also did implement the new wax fuel cards, something that the city had done. Worked out well for them, so we followed their lead. It allows us to do better tracking of fuel consumption by vehicle, and that's given us a little bit of credit on our fuel purchases. For billing, for our billing area, we did update our credit check process. The office staff processes nearly 2,900 bills each month, 1,900 of which are paper, 745 are electronic, and about 150 get both. So that's Chrissy and her team keep it busy every month doing that. And they process approximately 32 new customer applications each month. Now, some of those are maybe renters just moving from one rental unit to another, but it still does need to be processed. We began charging credit card fees on May 1st, implemented the 3% ACH credit, and designed a more streamlined and consistent deposit return process. For customer relations, we did. Again, I'm not going to read everything, but I think the highlights are we did have a whole public power week on the first week in October, held a raffle for a gift box that Simple provided, gave tours. Throughout the year, the office staff fielded over 6,000 calls, so they averaged 24 calls a day in the office. So, you know, they do keep busy. And we did redesign the disconnection process and streamlined it to better communicate to our customers their rights and responsibilities. Those changes, I can tell you just from watching it, has resulted in less customer confusion, decreased stress in the office, more consistency in our operations and how we work with customers. Chris, I think you can talk to that too. Because, we've really made that a lot better. We've been working with potential customers in the new Princeton Business Park as well. On the IT side, we continue to have staff participate in education for cybersecurity threats. As the commission knows, for utilities, we are a particular target for that. So it's important we protect our staff and our operations. Greg and I do meet semi-annually with CW Technologies to review those operations, ensure that we have disaster recovery plans in place, and do some strategic alignment between security, infrastructure, communications, business, and management. We did construct a server room down in the basement. If the commission ever wants to see that, I'm happy to take you down there for added security and reliability. And then we did convert staff cell phones to FirstNet for better emergency response capabilities. Again, kind of following the city's lead on that activity. Legal and regulatory, that's all housekeeping stuff. It's things we do every year. For safety, just to reiterate, we were notified early in 2022 that we won the 2021 APA Safety Award of Excellence, got honorable mention. And then, as I mentioned, we renewed our safety management program with MMUA, did that in partnership with the city, which saved each of us just over $7,000 a year by partnering together on this and doing it individually. For stakeholder engagement, I think that we are a community asset, so it's always important that we continue to work with community leaders and stakeholders. For the city of Princeton, we did provide auditor information when their past auditor informed them that they could no longer serve them. So we provided the city with information on our auditor, which they ended up selecting. That's worked very well for them. And then we joined the city in celebrating Public Safety Day, which occurs in September. Also want to mention we did host the April Simple board meeting here in town. The Civic ESR Nancy and I presented details about our rebate programs to the Chamber of Commerce. And in the Civic newsletter, we even had one of our customers' plastic products listed right on the front page for the work that they did on reducing their energy costs. The work that we've been doing has been getting noticed. Our rate study efforts were highlighted in APPA's January 31st newsletter. And we actually had our commission tour highlighted on the cover of APPA's May 3rd e-newsletter. Those are national notices, so Princeton is getting some recognition for the work. In the community, we did distribute the If I Were a Line Worker books to highlight to kids what a great career choice utility work can be. We did report on the energy efficiency results for 2021. I usually don't get those till May, June, so I always report the year prior. We saved our customers nearly 1.3 million kilowatt hours of energy, helping our low income customers and making sure that we meet all of our spending requirements per state regulations. So we exceeded all of those goals. We also had Jeremy participate in a video interview for a This Is Princeton promotion. So we have staff working to help promote the community in their own personal activities. We also participated in Simple to Be Bright campaign this year, which promotes LED rebates to residential customers. In 2022, we sold just over 2,400 LEDs, saving our customers 68,000 kilowatt hours for that program. Like I said, I wasn't going to go through everything, but there's a lot there.
Yeah.
I think it's a real testament to the direction that the work that the commission has done. I think it's a real testament to the commitment the staff has to serving our community. It's something to be celebrated.
I think it's very helpful that you do this. I think we all can get lost in the speed and whatnot that we do every week and every month. And when you do look back at this, it's really quite amazing how much things, how much work in different categories that we participated in. And in all cases, it's improved. So I thank you for keeping track of that, putting that all together.
My pleasure.
Let's go to the consideration of rescheduling August 23rd regular commission meeting. There's another MMUA.
Yes, it's the MMUA's summer annual conference.
Right. So a couple of things. Because our meeting falls on that same time, we should either go before or after. There may be some wisdom in going after, so the participants could report at our meeting. So that would put us at like the 30th. Commissioner Erickson, if that works for you. Commissioner Edmonds, if that works for you.
What if we got a date next week? I'll make it a day work.
Any issues there? Dan?
That works. Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. So the motion then is that I'll be making is move the August 23rd meeting to August 30th of 2023.
You made a motion.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll second it.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Erickson, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
I think we're done with my birthday.
Yeah.
Instead of being here, that's my birthday.
The other action that we need to take under D is with the MMUA summer conference. Mr. Butcher, you'll be attending that.
Yes, sir.
And then it's always nice to have a representation from the commission. So I went last year and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So if somebody wants to go, by all means, speak up now because we want to get it on the calendar for August 23rd as the calendar does fill up. And I'd like some commitments today. If no one does want to or doesn't choose to go, I'd be happy to go. But I want you guys to have first option.
But I couldn't commit on this short notice, so. I guess I would like to do it, but I'd have to look ahead, think that
It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
That's 3 day.
So it takes up some time.
I don't know where I'm gonna be in my
Okay.
real life at this point. I'm not making, I'm considering some changes and I don't know where it's at right now.
Right, and that's fair.
And to be fair too, we will also have the SIPA annual meeting, which is every October. And there are other opportunities, so if you can't make it. Like the chair said, I know Rick, is happy to participate.
Yeah, I guess, I think about August. I'm pretty involved with the county fair and stuff, and I could have a week ahead of that, or 2 weeks. But I don't know how much time they give you, I did. Things are kind of going on, and I don't know where it is right now. I don't want to commit to anything.
I understand. Dan, your thoughts?
I couldn't say right now. I'd have to look and see what that's pretty far out. I'd have to take a look at that.
If you're busy time of the year anyway, so.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. Chair, I guess that I can suggest that perhaps we say, we put you on. And if either of these two find out that they're available.
I have no problem with that, so just to get it on the books and to registration and whatnot, as that comes up early too.
Yeah, before that registration, I would make sure we have a conversation again, just to finalize that is.
Sure.
We can just put this as a plan.
Yeah.
This could be modified.
If the commission's fine with that, then I would like to take Mr. Butcher's recommendation, and if there's gonna be a change, at least we have a commission member assigned. So at least we'd have two people.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, we don't need to vote on that, so that's what we'll do.
I do have something else on
Yes.
this topic, though.
Okay,
For the commission to consider, I did receive an email from MMUA, just, mentioning that conference is coming up. There is a new track this year. They will be having a track specifically for council members and commissioners. And so MMUA did send out a notice asking that if there are suggestions on content, particular things that you think as a commissioner, who's serving on a utility commission, that would be helpful to have an expert present or particular topic areas addressed. Please let me know. Happy to forward that on to the conference planning committee, and they will do their best to make sure it's valuable for your job.
yeah, I read that and I thought that was very positive on their side to think that way, to collect outside information. That's really quite important.
So if anybody has any ideas or suggestions or thoughts, please let me know.
I guess I would thinking with the regional legislation at the state level, I imagine that's gonna probably highlight the whole conference in it.
Usually,
Pretty big part.
yes.
So specifically, I mean, I could think of a bigger things that I would like to see them not happen there.
What I've seen at some other conferences is more of talking about roles and responsibilities, talking about bylaws, talking about the meeting law, talking about things that, functionally a commission or a city council might need to think about as a functional government. Because it's not uncommon, especially on commissions, for people to come in that might not have served on government. It's a different animal. So sometimes just a little primer on how government works and what's the proper process and roles and responsibilities can be helpful. It depends on the background of people coming in. One of the beautiful things about democratic government is people from all different backgrounds. So trying to help people learn from the environment can be beneficial.
Before we adjourn, Jeremy, I've got a follow-up question for you. I just want to confirm that I heard you correct, and Mr. Butcher and staff completely can chime in on this. Did I hear it right that all development that's on the books now has the transformer needs and things for their project to be completed? Anything that's in action or anything now?
No.
Okay, so we are going to have some developments that are going to fall short as far as supply.
It's possible depending upon what their timing is, but we have not been informed of. There's been nothing else to show. I mean, there's been talk, you know, and with development, it's, you know, you never quite know until somebody applies for service. We don't have any applications for service on these projects.
Okay, so I guess that's what I was trying to get at, but
It's all dependent on what size transformers they want. You know, company A might come in and need a 2,000, company B might come in and need a 150 or 300 or 500, and it's all dependent on what the suppliers have and what they can get. It's really
So to put,
really volatile on
Yeah.
what parts and cases and stuff they have, and who else is ordering what.
right, I guess the
Yeah.
thing that caught my eye and why I'm bringing this up is because when the statement was made that, you know, transformers and ETAs on them may not even be this summer and possibly not the next summer, right? So that was my concern in asking that question. So if somebody knocked on the door, put an application in and said, I want to do this, it's approved. They could be waiting a long time, even though all the prior people ahead of that said, go.
correct. In particular, just to give some background, Jeremy is referring to a 1,500 kVA transformer. That's the biggest we have on the system.
Yeah.
Walmart has one. Hospital has one.
Yeah.
Plastic products.
Yeah, 1,500s and 2,000s.
Those are our biggest.
Yes.
So when we're talking about those, I mean, those are major industrial manufacturing.
Right.
If we're talking about a residential development with a 750 or KVA, say,
Yeah.
those lead times are probably different. We haven't checked them. At least I don't remember seeing a number of those.
But according to our major materials bid, they were, when we bid them back in December, they were 40 to 50.
Right. So those are sitting more at just under a year.
So that's still very much reality now.
So a big question with the big part of the answer to your question is, are we talking like a residential development or a commercial development? Timelines.
And that message of the long delay has been conveyed to any future projects coming in, that's been.
Every meeting I go
Top part of
to.
the solution. That they go to, that they have to get some.
And I mean, and the important thing is too, is it's not just transformers. I mean, it's the electrical equipment, it's the plumbing equipment that they're putting in this building. I mean, it's industry wide. I mean, it's, and the minute these developers are saying go on these projects, I mean, the apartment buildings, shipwreck, all of these sunken ship, these guys are dealing with it. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul. These developers are stealing parts from one building to go put in a different building. You know, it's been a tough goal the last couple, 2 or 3 years to get these buildings, these projects off the ground.
Well, and I even heard from Jen from WSB even made a comment at one of the city meetings that even water mains, they're seeing something.
It's across the board.
It's all phases of all the projects. It's very difficult. And some of the contract, not the contractors, some of the general contractors, the builders are okay with it, and some of them think it's 10 years ago, and they have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's nothing we can do. I mean, they walk in January and say, we're gonna build this building in June, we want power.
And
Sorry.
what makes it even harder for us is we have to maintain our inventory.
Right.
We don't want to deplete that, and then tomorrow.
Yeah.
Transformer goes up.
You know, and the problem is these transformers are, some of these transformers are 5, 6, 7 times what they were by cost wise.
Yeah. I want a clarification because Princeton's been growing and it's at a faster pace now than I've ever seen it. I've lived here all my life. So it's just unfortunate that all of a sudden more and more people come in and then we can't do it. So I'm just maybe trying to be prepared on somehow, some way, not to be discouraging, and that's the reason why they
Well,
don't.
I mean, a perfect example of this is like the Minco Bank. They were out 40 weeks on that transformer, 45 weeks. I called 3 different other power companies, if you will, trying to find a transformer. And I couldn't get one of them to sell me a transformer. You know, like upriver, whatever.
Right.
And to be honest with you, if Elk River called us, and we had one sitting there, you don't know.
Right.
I mean, if he called me and said, I had one blow up, I need one for something, I've got one coming in 6 weeks. That'd be one thing.
Yeah.
But I gotta order one.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough decision to make, and I get it. You know, for somebody that's coming in to build a building, I mean, an emergency is one thing.
Yeah.
But for a new project, that's a really, really tough decision. And you know, Minco really lucked out that our supplier had somebody back out on one, and we were able to slip into that spot on their order queue. And it was,
I think they run into other things that held them up that we would have been
yep,
pretty close to timeline for them on that particular deal.
yep,
With all the other things throughout the project that held them up.
Yep.
They're finding Monday, I think I heard they see that they were opening, so.
yep. I mean, they were still just putting the signs up here the other day. I drove by. They had a bucket truck out there putting the signs up, but I mean, otherwise, they were theoretically with the original timeline that we gave for the transformer, that building was originally in the beginning supposed to be done for like a month and a half before the transformer was even scheduled to be delivered. But it worked out for them. Now, some of these, you know, if somebody come in with a new building right now,
It may not.
even if we have a transformer for them, that's an internal decision that we're gonna have to make. I don't know what,
And we may be faced with that.
well, we are faced with that on a couple different occasions.
Okay, Commissioner Erickson, do you have any questions? Any further questions?
Nope, none from me.
Okay, with that, I'd like to thank the commission. I'd like to thank all the employees here and manager, Mr. Butcher. With that, I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn. We have first and second. Commissioner Erickson, your vote.
Aye.
Commissioner Edmonds. Aye, motion passed. Thank you all.